Well, a week is a very long time in football, isn't it? Well, less than a week. After 7 goals conceded in 2 Premier League matches, a heartbreaking European exit, you win one football match just before Christmas and the beers have flown, Santa Claus is almost coming down the chimney and all is forgotten.
We are going to Madrid.
But there were plenty of talking points. And to start with, I think you know whose name might come out of my mouth. A certain Mr. Lewis Miley stole the hearts of every single person inside St James's Park with a deserved first goal. Defensive options coming back in, surprising a couple of people, and an ongoing debate on one of our main attacking midfielders. It's the last word after a lovely victory against Fulham on Saturday. So if you're curious, do us a favour, Newcastle fans, because it's Christmas, and make sure you stick around. Welcome back to Black White Banter, you lovely Newcastle fans. And I'm saying you lovely Newcastle fans with a bit more spring in me step. The last couple of videos haven't been the happiest of reactions from my living room or from stadiums or pretty much in general. 3 defeats in a row. And you could probably argue, I said on my blog, if you haven't checked out any of my blogs, please follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Black White Banter. I like to do a last word blog. Slightly emotive writing, trying to get a bit creative with it, but they are getting good reviews. I've even had an author, a published author who supports Newcastle. He's commented and shared a couple of them. Me and him have exchanged messages. So that was quite nice. That was quite complimentary. He was very, very flattered to hear someone who writes for a living. So please check that out. And what I said on that was, you'd struggle to find a more difficult week under Eddie Howe's reign than the last 7-8 days. You know, if you think of the Everton game, the way that scoreline finished, Tottenham was awful, really poor goals, long old trip for the fans, and then that European night on Wednesday. I'm not fully over it every time I mention it or think about it, the way we crashed out. We should probably be playing European football going into the new year. Pretty tough matches to take, and not too many positives to take from any. Really a mix of heartbreak, bad defending, disappointment. So it's been a tough week, and I think going into that Fulham game, as I said on my match vlog, if you haven't checked it out, please do. Spoke to loads of fans, as I always do, legends, every single one of them. Love meeting new people after the match. But as I said on that, and a lot of the fans agreed with us who I was lucky enough to speak to, it was one of them matches that had a feel as we went into the stadium that it didn't overly matter massively on the performance. It was more about getting a win, stopping the rot, resetting, getting 3 points after 2 back-to-back defeats in the league, and moving on from there into a busy Christmas period. And that's what it felt like to me. And I think we got a bit of both. I think we got the win, which was the most important thing, but we also got a pretty decent performance. And yes, of course, were we helped by that karate chop, that karate lesson for poor Sean Longstaff from Mr. Jimenez? Yes, we were. But I think if anyone, any neutral watching that game, was to comment on how they thought the match was going to go before the red card, I don't think Fulham came with much ambition. I'm not saying they were damage limitation. I mean, Iwobi has a good chance when he goes through. But they came with a bit of a plan, and we penned them in quite early. And I think the second half, we just stepped it up a notch. But of course, like I like to do on these last words videos, let's get into some big talking points. But before we get into those talking points, do us a little favour, Newcastle fans. As it's Christmas, as it is the season to be jolly, drop us a little likey. Lou, that goes a very long way. It takes you a second to click, but this video might go to a couple more people. And whack that subscribe if you like my opinions by the end of it. There's a couple more match vlogs to come before Santa hopefully comes down my chimney. Just a small matter of a Tuesday morning trip down to Chelsea on the party bus, and a lovely trip to Luton to walk through someone's toilet, maybe catch someone having a shite to get into their away end, which I cannot wait for. So those match vlogs will be coming up, Chelsea and Luton. I'm going to both. So what that subscribe. So where do we start first? There's only one place to start from that match, isn't there? As an insight, as a talking point, and that's Mr. Lewis Miley. Now, not only as a passionate group of fans do we like to see one of our own coming through, but what I am seeing from Miley, and I don't like to jump the gun, whether it's a new signing, a new player, anything. I never like to jump the gun. But the fact that Miley has been thrown in against, we've seen him against Chelsea at home and we've won 4-1, getting assists. We've seen him against PSG, where we should have won, away in the Champions League against Mbappe and co. Some of the matches that Miley has contributed to and played in, Man United at home, one of our best performances of the season, if not the best. To be doing it at such a young age, I think this is a boy we can start getting excited about. And like for Saturday, for example, he didn't start. I understood him being left out. He's played a lot of football. Longstaff's a mainstay in our team. And he gets thrown in because of injuries. And, you know, that can be a bit unsettling for a player. And he just beds straight back in. Lovely little link-up. He played slightly out of position than what we've been used to him so far. A little bit more down that right-hand side. And I thought he was excellent. Not out of place in the slightest. And what I love about a player of his age... sorry. Something stuck in my throat. Getting so choked up talking about Lewis Miley. What I love about him, and I said it on a previous video, I will always remember Wayne Rooney at Euro 2004. How he literally lit the world up. Everybody knew Rooney's name after that tournament. He was amazing for England, and we might have even won the competition if he didn't get injured. But he played without fear. He played like he was playing a computer game. Money wasn't important. It was just a love of the game. And it's like I'm playing in the schoolyard with my friends. And that's what I feel Miley has about him. He has a lovely, likeable innocence when he talks. Just, from a footballing perspective, that sounds a bit of a weird comment that he has a nice innocence. You know what I mean? But he's so likeable in his interviews, and you can tell he's not the sort of player right now who's bothered about agent fees and contract negotiations and money and flash cars. He just wants to get into this football club. He's probably been raised in the right way by his parents, put on the black and white shirts that make him so proud, like any of us could only dream of, and make a good impression in this team. And he's playing without fear. He's playing like a boy who's got his head switched on. He's got that raw talent, which will only get more and more developed under... No one I'd rather be working with than Eddie Howe, and he looks comfortable. I've now got no doubts when I see Lewis Miley's name on the team sheet. If you'd gone back a month, I would have gone, still a bit raw. Not ideal that he's playing so much. Now, I will more than happily accommodate Lewis Miley. Of course, there's areas of the game he can work on. I think his link up in and around the box will only get better. I think Longstaff's improved that in his time in this Newcastle team. Lewis Miley needs that. There's the strength. He's quite a frail kid. He's only 17. He probably needs to continue hitting the gym as most lads at that age do. But we are seeing a top talent. And my God, was it lovely to see him get his first goal. Can you imagine him rocking up to the under-18s Christmas pizza party in the days after that match, after just scoring in the Premier League for Newcastle United? Can you imagine him going on Xbox on Saturday night after the game? All right, lads, what you've been up to? Sat about doing out, eating Frosties, watching footy on the telly, have you? Do you know what I've just done? I've just scored at St James's Park. I mean, it's dream stuff, and long may it continue, and that's a talent we need to keep an eye on. But you know what the nicest thing is? Once over with a talent like this, we would have been worried about him leaving, not only because he had ambition to actually be successful, like the dire Newcastle team could never have offered him under Mike Ashley, but because we would have sold at the first opportunity. Not anymore, Newcastle fans. We are building something now, and Miley, like Andy Carroll, I'll always remember, I was gutted when we sold him, devastated. He was doing so well for us. Yes, we got a lot of money for him, but that's not going to happen now with Miley, because we've got a team and a project that tie in nicely, and our academy will hopefully only get better. Now, another talking point from Saturday, of course we could talk about Bruno's performance. It was fantastic. He was the catalyst. We don't need to talk about him too much on this video, and that's no disservice to Bruno. It's just we talk about him a lot. Bruno did on Saturday what we know Bruno can do. He put the key in the car in the second half, and not put the key in the car. He changed gears, let's say. That's probably a better way of wording it. And he put it into fifth gear, and he really pushed on, and he dictated playing with Joe Linton going off. We don't know how serious it is. All I'll say on Bruno is we need more performances like that from him. As much football as he's played in the coming weeks, because if Joe Linton, who's been playing fantastic, injury is bad, Bruno will have to step up in that central midfield. He really, really will. He can be the creative spark between Gordon, between Isak, between Wilson, between Almiron. He's the man between them lines who can make things happen. And he did, and I mean, his cross was absolutely beautiful for Dan Burn's header. Now, on to the next point I wanted to get on to. Emil Kraft has to be given a shout out. The man has gone through hell with injury. He's come back to a Newcastle team who've been flying in the Champions League, winning against PSG. Just a steady, stable team, and Eddie Howe does not like to change his defence. And yes, of course, Kraft was asked to come in because of issues and injuries on Saturday, same as Miley was. But my God, he did not look out of place down that right-hand side as well. You're not going to compare him and Kieran Trippier. Of course you aren't. Trippier's got some of the top assists in the league this season. But Emil Kraft needs to be talked about as a reliable, steady option, whether it's at centre-back or at full-back. I think at full-back he's kind of making it his own. I think Eddie Howe prefers him there. I really, really do. And if you look at our centre-back options now, the Botman's back. Lascelles, Dan Burn, Botman, Dummett, who's barely had a sniff since the Carabao Cup. Maybe he'll get a sniff in the next match on Chelsea on Tuesday. We have options, but at full-back, not so many. Livramento, Lewis Hall, I'm not going to talk about in this video. Eddie Howe doesn't fancy him. But Emil Kraft on Saturday at both ends of the pitch, I think he's pushed on so much, because if you've gone back to the Kraft under Bruce, in the final third, he didn't offer much. I mean, on Saturday, his performance and his confidence was epitomised by him Megson, the Fulham defender, in the corner and getting barged over and winning a free kick near the corner flag. That was class to see. The fact Krafu is even trying that is absolutely brilliant. And it's lovely to see him back. It's lovely to see so many players coming back. God, we've done so well with the injuries we've got. So Emil Kraft, another option there, and that's fantastic to see. Now, the final point from me on this last word video is regarding a certain attacking midfielder of ours, as I said at the start. A certain Miguel Almiron, the Smiler, as you might want to call him. And he has. It's not a negative. He's causing a lot of debate on social media more recently. Now, in my opinion, the last 4 matches, Almiron has not been at the standard we would hope from an attacking point of view. And he has a very pivotal role in our attack. You know, he's ever present on that right-hand side of a front three. And yes, the results haven't been great. Yes, maybe you can argue in the Tottenham match, for example, nobody played well. Apart from Joelinton, nobody did. But for me, yes, we know what we get with Almiron. We get work rate. We get an absolute tireless work rate. We get an intensity. We get a press. And it is so obvious in a lot of ways why Eddie Howe likes him, because he suits Eddie Howe's style of play. Alan St-Maximin, for example, was the total polar opposite of what Eddie Howe looks for in an attacking wide player. No work rate, lazy in areas, plays when he wants to. You could maybe argue with Maximin. Almiron grafts both ends of the pitch. Graft. But it gets to a point where you're looking for a bit more quality. And anyone who watches my videos knows that I've never been a huge Almiron fan. I want him to do well. I've got no reason. Maybe Dubravka's probably the only person in the team where I've got a bit of a sticking point because of all the stuff with Man United last summer. But I've got no reason for him to want him to not do well. And he's had purple patches, but he hasn't had one of them for a while with that famous cut inside top corner finish that we've seen at St James's Park. And in the last 4 matches, we know he doesn't have a right foot, and that's always been my issue with him on that right-hand side. There's been moments against Everton going clean through and trying to use his left. There was a crossing opportunity against Everton in a good area when the game was quite tight. Tottenham, there was a moment when he could have used the other foot and he chose not to, and it cost us a little bit because it was one of our only good chances in the game. And there's just little moments where he can whip the ball in. And yes, he brings Kieran Trippier into the game by cutting back. I get that. And I'll get onto that in a second. But what I noticed with Almiron on social media is because he's so liked, because of his work rate, because he's been around a while, maybe part of that furniture of Newcastle since before the takeover, and he smiles, and he's a bit of a darling of the fan base, you could probably argue, and I bet he's liked on the training ground. You do get a bit of a backlash from Newcastle fans if you say anything negative about him. And you get accused of using him as a scapegoat and picking on him. That's not what I do, and I don't think that's what a lot of Newcastle fans do neither. And you have to ask yourself, if that's a player for a long time that we've gone back to question his performances from an attacking point of view, an attacking quality point of view, is there maybe a reason for that? And one stat I'm going to point to on that note is 6 Premier League assists since January 2020 when the player signed. 6 Premier League assists, and I know he contributes in other areas. I know he's maybe the pass before the pass for goals, and I've got no doubts about it. Other players in the Newcastle side love his work rate, as I mentioned, Eddie Howe does. But that's a quite concerning stat as we evolve into a much more prominent attacking team. Now, someone who I love, who I've said before on Twitter, Kev Lawson, who shares a lot of stats from StatBomb that he uses to highlight things. He's mentioned recently that Almiron, in terms of attacking sprints, and intense sprints, has 30 more than any other player per average in the Premier League. That was a little bit more recently. And the argument he's made recently is, yes, he can do all of them things that Eddie Howe loves. But when you don't have that quality in the attack, are you really telling me that Newcastle couldn't upgrade in January or the summer to a player who puts the same work rate in, but also offers more in the final third? And an example he used on the graphic more recently was a player called Wirtz, who's doing quite well in German football, who offers the same level of intensity in a lot of ways, but also very similar playing style, but a lot more quality and output in the final third. And that's my argument for Almiron. You cannot tell me that a player warrants being in the team a lot of the time, and I know he scores, so that's why I'm saying a lot of the time in inverted commas, because of work rate alone. But also, can we just get away from this culture of, if a player is criticised in isolation for a performance, like against Fulham on Saturday, where he got his goal, fair play, but it was a tap-in. And that, to me, disguised a game where he frustrated me for large spells. He did, for all of his running, for all of his ball carrying. He frustrated me. And it's okay to talk about that on social media. I mean, when he scored that tap-in, people are going on Twitter and putting, where are the Almiron haters now? My nana! God rest her soul. I'm not even religious. I need to stop saying God rest her soul. She could have tapped that in when she was still alive and kicking from 4 yards. So that's not a reason for us not to say that the rest of his performance wasn't quite there. Yes, he had to be on the money to score. Just as recently as today, my manager, who's not a Newcastle fan, but he's very much into his stats, he told me that Almiron had made we have a team of the week that we post out. And I couldn't believe that he was in team of the week. And he told me that he was highest in that match for ball recoveries. He was highest in that match for attack and progression in terms of carrying the ball. Most touches out of any attacker. And sometimes all of these stats are great. Yeah, wonderful. But let's talk about what we are witnessing on the pitch as a whole. What he's doing with the ball in the final third. His decision-making in the final third. And the stats don't always tell that story. And he's continuing to split opinion. And all I want from the guy is to maybe improve a little bit. I didn't think he was very good against Everton. I didn't think he was very good against Spurs. Nobody was. I didn't think he was very good against Milan. The less said about that chance he missed, the better. And I didn't think he was very good against Fulham on Saturday. And 6 assists since 2020, bearing in mind he's got at least an average of 30 appearances per season in that time. He's just a little bit short of what we need to be looking for when Anthony Gordon on the other side, and I know it's just as we speak right now, Anthony Gordon could quieten down his output, goals, assists, taking a man on. I'm not comparing the two because they're very different players, but this whole criticise Almiron at your peril needs to stop on social media. So that's my thoughts on the game, Newcastle fans. On to Chelsea we go in the Cup on Tuesday. Another massive game. My God, do I want another Cup final. I couldn't think of anything more, and it is a big match, even if we've got a lot to come. How it's going to go is a different story, and I'll do a match preview in the coming day or so. Let us know your thoughts on Fulham on Saturday. What did you take away from it? Let us know what you think about Lewis Miley. Let us know what you feel about Crafu coming back into the team and how you think he got on. And most importantly, where do you stand on Miguel Almiron? Where do you stand? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you on that next video. But not a bad couple of days supporting Newcastle after what felt like one of the worst in the last couple of years. Probably tells you how far we've come. I'll see you on the next one. How are you, lads?